Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to PrepBee. We are doing CAT VARC 30 days challenge and day 24 and CAT 2022 slot 2 passage. So let's get started. Humans today make music. Think beyond all the qualifications that might trial after this bold statement. That only certain humans make music, that extensive training is involved, that many societies distinguish musical specialists from non-musicians, that in today's society, most listen to music rather than making it, and so forth. All right. So what the author is trying to say here is that uh, the simple statement, this introduces the universal nature of music making as an activity of humans, right? So the author asks the readers to set aside complexities or exceptions that might accompany the claim, and he encourages a broader point of view. He says that the author lists common assumptions or nuances about music making, such as its specialization, training requirements, or the divisions between the music makers and the listeners. All right. Uh, these qualifications, whatever their local merit, are moot in the face of the overarching truth that making music, considered from a cognitive and psychological vantage, is the province of all those who perceive and experience what is made. We are almost all of us musicians, everyone who can entrain, not necessarily dance to a beat, who can recognize a repeated tune, not necessarily sing it, who can distinguish one instrument or one singing voice from another. I will often use an antique word recently revived to name this broader musical experience. Humans are musical creatures. All right. So what the author is saying that despite the validity of all these details, what details the specialization, the training requirements, or the divisions between musicians and the listeners, despite all this validity of the details, the author argues that musical making as a universal human capacity transcends these distinctions. The author defines music making inclusively, emphasizing that basic musical abilities like recognizing rhythms or melodies qualify nearly everyone as musician. The author introduces the term musicking as a concept to describe this universal human engagement with music. The author asserts that engaging with music is a defining trait of humanity. The set of capacities that enables musicking is a principal marker of modern humanity. There is nothing polemical in this assertion except a certain insistence, which will figure often in what follows, that musicking be included in our thinking about fundamental human commonalities. Capacities involved in musicking are many and take shape in complicated ways arising from innate dispositions. Most of these capacities overlap with non-musical ones, though a few may be distinct and dedicated to musical perception and production. In the area of overlap, linguistic capacities seem to be particularly important, and humans are, in principle, language makers in addition to music makers, speaking creatures as well as musicking ones. All right. So, music making is highlighted as a fundamental ability distinguishing modern humans. The author argues for including music making in discussions about what unites humans universally. Music making involves various abilities, many of which are rooted in natural biological tendencies. While music making shares cognitive resources with other activities like language, some abilities may be unique to music. Language and music, they share a common cognitive foundations, highlighting the dual identity of humans as both speakers and music makers. Humans are symbol makers too, a feature tightly bound up with language, not so tightly with music. The species Cassirer, dubbed Homo symbolics, cannot help but tangle musicking in webs of symbolic thought and expression, habitually making it a component of behavioral complexes that form such expression. But in fundamental features, musicking is neither language-like nor symbol-like, and from these differences come many clues to its ancient emergence. So, Humans create and use symbols extensively in language, but music is less directly tied to symbolic form. All right. So the author notes that humans naturally associate music with symbolic and cultural meanings, as suggested by philosopher Cassio's concept of humans as symbol making beings. All right. So music differs significantly from language and symbols, offering insights into how and why it may have evolved. If music is a primarily shared trait of modern humans, then to describe its emergence must be to detail the post feeling of that modernity. This took place, archaeologists are clear, over a very long during, at least 50,000 years or so, more likely something closer to 2 lakh, depending in part of what the coalescence is taken to compromise. So, understanding the origin of music requires examining the broader development of human traits. So, the author refers to archaeological evidence suggesting that the development of modern human traits, including music making, occurred gradually over 10,000 years ago. If we look back in 20,000 years, a small portion of this long period, we reach the lives of humans whose musical capacities were probably the little different from our own. As we look further back, we reach horizons where the similarity can no longer hold, perhaps 40,000 years ago, perhaps 70,000, perhaps 1 lakh. But we never cross a line before which all the cognitive capacities recruited in modern music can abruptly disappear. Unless we embrace the incredible notion that music sprang forth in full ground glory, its emergence will have to be tracked in gradualist terms across a long period. So they are just trying to say that humans living 20,000 years ago likely had musical abilities comparable to those of today. And earlier in history, humans' musical abilities might have been less developed or different from ours, but there is no definitive point in history where humans lack all these cognitive abilities required for music making. So the author dismisses the idea of music appearing suddenly and argues for a gradual evolution of musical abilities. This is one general feature of a history of music's emergence. The history was at once socio-cultural, cultural, and biological. The capacities recruited in musicking are many, so describing its emergence involves following several or many separate strands. So, the gradual development of music making is key aspect of history. Music's emergence is tied to both cultural evolution and also the biological development. And understanding how music evolved requires examining multiple interconnected aspects of human cognition and culture. This is what author is trying to say here. So I hope you understood this. First, uh, the author talks about humans, about music, music listeners, music makers, the qualifications that are required. Then he talks about, despite all these qualifications, uh, they are in the face of overarching truth that making music. It is considered from a cognitive and psychological vantage as a province of all those who perceive and experience what is meant. You can perceive and experience what it is meant and are on path. And then it talks about a term musicking. It is a principal marker of the modern humanity, and it talks about how we can, how music is made and how the capacities overlap with the non-musical ones. And we talk about the linguistic capacities. Then we talk about the symbol, first languages and linguistic, and then we talk about the symbols, and then we talk about how it evolved over a period of time. It was not something that we made it, invented it. So which one of the following sets of terms best serves as keywords to the passage? Musicking, cognitive psychology, anti, did we really discuss? Can it be a keyword? No. Casio, can it be a keyword? Not really. It was just mentioned. Humans, capacities, language, symbols, modernity. Modernity rather than. It's just we were discussing how it got evolved. Humans, we were talking about the humanity. मॉडर्न ह्यूमंस कैसे बिहेव करते हैं और कैसे हुआ था then humans musiking linguistic capacity, then we talked about symbol making, and then modern humanity. What is your answer? Now uh based on the passage, Which one of the following statements is valid argument about the emergence of music or music? Anyone who can perceive and experience music must be considered capable of musicking. Anyone who can perceive and experience music must be considered capable of musicking. We are not sure we should consider them capable of musicking. They can, but are they capable? We don't know. Although musicking is not language like, we are not talking, it's not language like, we actually discuss the linguistic things as well. 20,000 years ago, musical human capacities were not very different from what they are today. Exactly what we are discussing back 20,000 years ago or 40,000 years and all of that. Third is your answer. Now let's go ahead. Think beyond all the qualifications that might trial after this BARC statement. So you have to think from a broader perspective, is what the author is trying to say. A BARC statement is one that is stated by a series of qualifying clarifications and caveats. No, we are just trying to say that we are, there are so many things, but you'll have to explore more. Maybe there is a different side. Maybe this is a good. Maybe this is not. Although there are maybe many caveats and other considerations, the statement is essentially true. This is what the author means by this BARC statement. It's a very common used thing. Which one of the following statements, if true, would weaken the author's claim that humans are musical creatures? Musical capacities are primarily socio-culture, which explains that diversity. If they were socio-cultures, then how would we be capable of how would we consider that humans are musical creatures? There would not be much diversity and all of that. So this itself is weakening your claim. Now, there is a common idea that museum artworks are somehow timeless objects available to admire for generations to come. But many are objects of decay. Even the most venerable old master paintings don't escape. Pigments discolor, varnishes crack, canvases scrap. This challenging fact of art world life is down to something that sounds more like a threat from a morality tale. Inherent vice, dominant thirst, ironic shark floating in a tank, entitled The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living, is a work that put a spotlight on inherent vice. When he made it in 1991, Hearst got himself in a pickle by not using the right kind of pickle to preserve the giant fish. The result was that the shark began to decompose quite quickly, its preserving liquid clouding, the skin wrinkling, and an unpleasant smell wafting from the tank. So they are just trying to say how these people, the artworks, the museum artworks, they are not timeless. They, something happens to them, discolor, they varnish, or most of the paintings, everything, they decay. This is the challenging fact of the art world. All right, that deterioration तो होके ही रहेगा. Museums are left with moral responsibility of restoring. ये तो main idea है ही नहीं. Artworks may not last forever; they will deteriorate with time, and the challenge is to slow down that degeneration. This is what it is given कि हमने कैसे slow down करने का कोशिश किया. How this attempt was made. Okay, we'll hold on to this. The role of museums have evolved to ensure that they are preserved forever in addition to guarding. We are not sure. We just want to slow down the process. Museums have to guard timeless art treasures from intrinsic defects such as we have to guard नहीं हमें बस देखना है कि कैसे करें वो एक challenge है. Now, women may prioritize cooking because they feel they alone are responsible for mediating a toxic and unhealthy food system. Food is commonly framed through the lens of individual choice. You can choose to eat healthy. This is particularly so in neoliberal context where the state has transferred the responsibility for food onto individual consumers. The individualized framing of choice appeals to a popular desire to experience agency, but draws away from the structural obstacles that stratify individual food choices. So second is introducing your idea that food is commonly framed through the lens of individual choice. You can choose to eat healthy. Now, this individualized choice appeals to a popular desire. Something. So 2-4 is linked. It but draws away from the structural obstacles that stratify individual food choices. Why is this happening? This is particularly so in this context, where the state has transferred the responsibility of food to individual consumers. And now women may prioritize this one. So 2431.